got friends, only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been winning all the war.
Welcome to Put That Coffee Down, the Freight Sales Show for Closers. My name is Kevin Hill. I'm your host, and I'm live on location at Ryder here in Fort Worth, Texas. I have David Stone right here. He's the Senior Director of Brokerage, and we're going to talk about this cool office, these cool TVs, the cool team down here sitting, booking freight right now, and then we're going to talk about the market a little bit.
Let's do it.
Thanks for inviting me and let me drop by the offices.
Yeah, thanks for showing up and checking this place out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's going to be some cool B-roll flying through here as we're talking that we've been recording today. So first off, what do we have here down here on this floor?
Yeah, super excited for you guys to be able to check this place out. But the Fort Worth location is about 80 account executives plus support folks. We also have our location in Nashville that right now is about 40 people. We'll ramp that one up pretty significantly here in the coming months and years. And then we have another location up in Novi, Michigan. But what you're looking at right now is 80 account executives, hard at work, traditional brokerage. You got folks up and about on the phones, just having a lot of fun down there. So
you have the music down there. You have the college paraphernalia down there. I see some. I thought I saw some Sooners gear.
Yeah, there's a few that we've allowed in here, but I mean, for us, it's all about creating this environment where people can feel free, can feel a part of something, can feel a community connection. If you go down there and check out, every single row has their own team flag, and so we're really big into that team atmosphere of allowing folks to feel like they're a part of that team, even though they're in the bigger team of the brokerage side of things. So, but we're really big in meeting people where they're at, and folks want to come in and they want to feel like they're a part of this community environment. And they want to feel like they're doing something great. And oh, by the way, they're able to do some pretty cool things on the freight side of things too. So
yeah, you got the World Cup. Today's kind of the opening day.
Absolutely.
I guess it started last night.
Yeah.
But today's the opening day. And talking about being part of a team, being free. Being a freight broker is all about creativity. Yeah. It's all about, in a lot of respects, letting go.
Yeah.
Whether you're on the phone selling, because it's such a hard sell, you just gotta be free a little bit, right? Yeah. Or booking loads, negotiating with carriers. You have to be loose and relaxed.
Yeah,
right?
and I think about it this way. I mean, if you think about when somebody comes in here, number one, they're super nervous and they're super scared. If we're bringing in folks that have never experienced freight in certain aspects, right? They don't know anything about this, and so they walk into this sales-based environment. They're nervous about just picking up the phone and calling. So how do I create that environment where it's not a nervous piece to pick up the phone and call? Well, I create an environment like you see down there. And I tell the story all the time. One of my best salespeople of all time used to walk around with a 9-iron acting like he's on the golf course the entire time. And by the way, he's on the phone talking with customers, talking with carriers, doing whatever he needed to do to really make the sale or handle the carrier issue. But he was 100% just at home, just acting like he's on the golf course.
You have to be comfortable.
That's exactly right.
No matter what it is, you have to be able to be in your comfort zone because certainly in the game of freight, you have no's, right?
Correct.
No one likes to hear no's, so you have to be comfortable with hearing no's and whatever you're doing. If you're comfortable, if you have a golf club, baseball bat, whatever it is.
Yeah, we got those down there too.
I just have to be comfortable, and then especially if you're new in freight. I remember when I was new in freight, it's a whole new language, the jargon, the terminology, the trailer types. You just have to be in a comfort zone.
100%. And I think the thing that's great about what we've built down there is really you're in that comfort zone, but you're allowing the collaboration piece to hit into, right? So you do hear those no's and maybe you do get down, but you got your buddy right next to you that he's got a great call. And so you're feeding off that energy and it builds you right back up. And I tell a lot of new starts that come into our place, which is, what's one thing that I can do as I come in to be prepared? And the biggest thing is just have a great attitude. And you got to let the no's roll off and you got to continue to celebrate the wins in any capacity. And whether that's your buddy that's winning or whether that's you that's winning, everything that you do inside of that floor down there is all about the team environment where everybody feels a part of this. And I think, the reason that freight brokerage is so cool from a sales piece is because there really is this environment where it's not a I win, you lose type of environment. We're not going after the same stuff. It's you win, I win, you win. We celebrate together and we build each other up together. And the old saying of, high tide raises all boats. Yes. Well, in freight brokerage, that is more prevalent than any other industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with that. And one of that is, when you're talking about pricing, right? No two loads are really priced the same.
Yeah.
You really have to have that collaboration, that team mentality, and being around other people, seeing what they're selling loads for,
Absolutely.
what they're negotiating with
Absolutely.
carriers for, because that's how you learn the market.
Absolutely.
And there's just no way to do that in isolation.
Absolutely.
A lot of other businesses, you have a price list, right? Fixed price list, doesn't matter. But you're trading transportation as a freight brokerage.
Right.
That price is moving day to day, hour to hour.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I think that's what's so interesting is you do bring a lot of these new folks in and you try to teach them some components of pricing or different elements of the business. And a lot of this is just get in and do it. You'll experience this. And once you do, you're going to make a whole bunch of mistakes. And that's okay. That's all right. We've all done it. But those mistakes and those experiences is the ability to turn around to your buddy and go, hey, man, this is how I price this. I just lost. What do I do next time? And now you can turn around and figure out what happened on that piece, right? Hey, you didn't see this coming. You didn't experience this piece. So let me tell you about this. Or, the best part about that is somebody that comes in and they do their first dry van and then all of a sudden they get a reefer load and they price it the exact same way. It's like, basics, man. But those are components that we just love. As you walk around the floor, you feel the kind of energy that happens when those mistakes happen and the natural coaching that takes place with other team members that are around them versus just a leader having to come down and coach somebody.
You're exactly right. I remember the first time someone ever gave me freight to move. I was so excited. You're on the phone, you hear the nose. It's big time. Yeah. It's like, hey, company XYZ. And two of the people right next to me started laughing. Like, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all right. And they're exactly right. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as a new rep, you get the bad customers.
Yeah.
But it's good to know, that they're pricing freight and you're overhearing osmosis. You're just absorbing everything. Yeah. And it really helps to have that learning curve.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think some of the stuff that we pride ourselves on is we love that environment where it is the coaching that happens on the floor together with your other team members, because there's a lot of value that comes in that. It's not just a leader saying, hey, you made a mistake here. And maybe there's some, if we're doing our leadership right, it should never be a kind of a barrier for that person to understand what the leader's trying to say. But if you have a friend that walks over and goes, hey, man, probably did that a little bad. Like, let me help you out with this. That's a different element. And now I'm going to take feedback from my partner that's next to me, and I'm going to learn from that in a much easier manner. I'm going to go off and I'll probably be pretty successful. I'm not going to make that mistake again. So that's a lot of what we focus on down there. And that's really why we have the floor set up the way we do. It's why we have the manager set up the way we do. But it at the end of the day, like, our job is to break every barrier so that rep that's sitting in that seat can do their job. They feel free. They can have fun. They can experience winning. And I joke all the time, like, winning, when you drive into the parking lot and you see those new cars and you hear about the new houses and you hear about all that stuff, there's some winning aspect to what we do. And for a 22-year-old that's coming out of college and they see that stuff, they get pretty pumped up about that.
But you do. You get very pumped up about it. You have to go through those no's.
That's right.
You have to get those no's.
Got to get those war stories. That's exactly right.
I know. And especially right now, I mean, I imagine there's a few people that you have down there. There's a lot of people in the industry right now who've never seen a down market. Yeah. They came in during COVID. Yeah. It's been such a bull market for 2.5 years. We're talking about right before we hit record, peak season this year. We'll talk about that in just a second. But selling into a down market is entirely different.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's an interesting piece, is because a lot of our folks, especially how we built up this brokerage, really it's been a 2020 play onwards, and 2020 was through the roof, and no one, every time you call somebody, there's freight to move, and it's a different element. I think we're starting to experience some of that with folks having to figure out that customer acquisition actually is super hard. It's super hard to get a customer, and then it's super hard to keep that customer. And so what you do today is even different than what you did a year ago when you first came in and you were winning all these new customers. And so it's figuring out what that looks like and how to train into that, especially when somebody's been here for a year and they, quote unquote, they know it, they've seen it. Well, they haven't seen anything yet until they've kind of gone through all those cycles of the freight market. And that's what's great about freight, is that the market's constantly moving, and it's our ability to kind of think ahead and see around corners that makes a lot of what we do fun and exciting, but also nerve-wracking at the same time. And you're seeing a lot of folks down there pulling out their hair right now because they're trying to get that customer, and it's hard now. It's really hard.
It is hard, and it goes back to collaboration. These are the times where it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have a turning market, right, and you can strategize, lean on your teammates, you can share and collaborate and learn together, because What got you customers a year ago
It's not going to be the same.
None at all.
Yeah, I think that's what's super interesting about that is because you're having conversations now where, a year ago, I was winning on every load I moved. Every single one. There wasn't a single conversation. Maybe there's a conversation about a margin piece, maybe this margin versus that margin. Now you're having conversations about, hey, I'm losing on these. What's it going to take? And what's the strategy related to that as I come out of this year? And what's that kind of look like? And I know we're going to get into some market conversations, but that's a lot of the conversations with a lot of these folks is, hey, what you're doing today has to be baked into the long-term play on a given customer, right? And if we're really about the service, it's going to prove it now because getting that customer, they're having 1,000 brokers call them every single day saying the exact same thing. And what you did to win last year is not the same as this year. And so you better have that service component dialed in, because if you say, hey, service is king, and you don't have the service, well, they're going to turn around and go right back to that other broker and go with somebody else, and you're going to lose that customer. I think that's what you're finding a lot today.
You're exactly right, and that's what I hear from every freight broker that I talk to, is that it's back to service levels.
Yep.
Last year, service levels, just give me a truck.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Just move the freight.
You just move the freight.
That's
the
it.
value of getting a truck and moving the freight was so high that no one looked at anything else. Well, the value of getting a truck and moving that freight right now is almost zero.
Yeah.
Right? Because anyone can do it.
Yep.
It's that service level, that commitment, certainly doing what you say, under promising, over delivering maybe is part of that, but making sure that the entire process is as frictionless as possible is key.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing really in the market today is the fact that we talk a lot about service, but I think a lot of customers, what they want to see is like, put your money where your mouth is, and are you actually going to deliver? And if you do, guess what? Next year, I'll reward you, and there'll be an RFP, there'll be a pricing event that you guys can participate in. But if you're not willing to play ball in this environment today and service at all costs, well, then you're not going to be able to play ball next year when there actually is freight. And that's kind of the dilemma that a lot of these folks are in today is, we talked about service for the longest time, but at the same time, being able to deliver that at the time that we're at right now is completely different. And if you're not able to do that, well, then you can kiss your chances of participating in this RFP next year gone. They're not going to be there next year.
Delve a little bit more into the RFP season this year. What are you seeing? What are some of the highlights? What are some of the changes in the market? You detailed a couple of them right there, but let's specifically talk about RFPs right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we're seeing a lot of RFP events occur, and I think they're occurring in a faster manner than we've ever seen before. I think you're seeing a lot of customers that a lot of ours have pulled away from this idea of long-term RFPs and pulled more into the short-term RFP.
So we're seeing a shorter duration.
That's
You're
exactly
seeing
right.
that. Yeah.
And I think a lot of them are willing to talk through quarterly RFPs, right? Hey, we don't know what's going to happen in the next quarter. You don't know what's going to happen. So let's do an RFP that protects us both. And let's do a quarterly RFP. And you're starting to see that piece roll out. I do see a lot of shippers that are saying, hey, come Q2 next year, you're probably going to get back into the regular cadence in terms of what we would expect on RFPs. But for right now, because no one knows what's going to happen, we're not willing to commit to anything. And we want you guys to service us, and we want to make sure that whatever you commit to, you actually do service. And so we're hearing a lot more about that kind of prime tender acceptance, quarterly RFPs, and being able to, if you do that, be able to step into next year when they do a full term RFP, being able to participate in those.
That's part of the gig. It's part of any sales gig, right? It's building trust and getting your foot in the door, building trust over time. And that's what shippers are asking for you right now. And you just have to deliver.
Yeah, I think, a lot of us in sales talk about the long game, right? Well, let's play the long game. Well, you're figuring out what the long game really is right now, because a shipper really, at the current day that we're in right now, they have their fair share of whatever they want to go do. And if you mess up on a single load, you're hearing conversations from shippers today that we really haven't had in the past year and a half. And I think that's a very interesting time to be in.
It is. I remember those markets. I really remember those markets. 2017 being one of those markets, right? That was a tough market. Yeah. And you had to perform.
Yep.
You had to perform because you could get a truck. Anyone could get a truck. Anyone could do bargain basement prices, right? You had to add value over over that rate because the rates were so low and everyone is competing so much. But then you have to deliver. Is that follow through? And that's the toughest part.
I think I've had, we've gone through multiple conversations with customers where we lay out our full kind of value prop, and we've gone through the full value prop, and I've had customers look me right in the eye and say, that's all great. Can you actually do what you say you're going to do? And if you can't, then let's end the conversation right now, and I don't care about your pricing. And I think that's exactly where we want to be from a freight brokerage, because, okay, service is king, let's go do it. But I think at the end of the day, like, shippers truly are looking for that service level today more so than they've looked in the past year and a half.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Which brings us into peak season and kind of what we're seeing for peak season, because peak season is, certainly it's the reason why we're talking about a down market and what's happening. And do you think that, but before we even get into peak season, do you think we had peak season earlier this year, and maybe, or what's your thought?
I think we've seen blips. I mean, produce season was definitely a blip in terms of customers that we've had, and I think that we saw some peaks in terms of that. I think that the inventory push that everybody was talking about, I think we saw some of that, but I think we saw the other side of it too, which is large customers canceling a ton of POs because inventory levels were through the roof, or large customers asking for storage trailers because they just didn't have the room for that inventory. And so I think that we've seen blips of what we thought was going to be a peak season or what we thought was going to happen. But in the end, it's kind of just been this very small blip on the radar, and nothing's really materialized from an overall peak season.
Do you think 2021 was like this is the hangover of the 2021 peak season, that there's inventory still hanging around? That's, because of the, you're canceling a lot of purchase orders, you're doing a lot of this, it just evaporated. I don't know.
I think that the purchasing habits related to a lot of these customers, I think completely changed when COVID hit. And a lot of us, went off and thought inventory levels needed to be raised through the roof. And I think what you see is the effect of 6 months to maybe 12 months of conversations that happened, and you're starting to see the true effects of that kind of materialize. So if I turn around and see 12 months ago, where were we? I think that the purchasing pieces that happened 12 months ago are starting to materialize today. And I think that that's a big component of what we're seeing. And I think that what we're doing today is going to materialize probably 6 months from now, which is probably that Q1, Q2 of next year, where we'll start to see some pieces. So I think from a pure inventory management perspective, are we seeing a hangover from 2021? A little bit, but I also think that, the e-commerce days that we saw in 2021 have gone away, and now we're changing that thought process. I think that the consumer is buying differently. I think inflation has definitely hindered that piece, right? Where you go to the store and you still pay the same $200, but your $200 is now all spent on CPG type of stuff versus, I was spending $50 on CPG and $150 on video games and things like that. I think a lot of that has shifted, and I think that's causing some of these issues. But I truly think that if I'm a buyer in a supply chain right now, like, I'm pulling out my hair because I don't know which way the consumer is going to go next year, and I'm trying to figure out what that looks like next year.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. If you're a buyer in the supply chain, right? If you're a company reporting earnings, whether you're a CPG company or more discretionary, you're having and you mentioned both of those, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned those two very difficult conversations with vendors, right? And part of that is shifting of consumer demand and inflation, price hikes. You're defending yourself against price hikes. People are buying less physical, tangible goods right now. And then all of a sudden, where does peak season go? Where does peak season go?
Yeah, I think this year is, I think you're seeing the leveling out of peak. I think this will be the year of kind of definitive, what does a quote unquote end of COVID peak kind of look like? I think next year it probably starts to get back into some regular cadence in terms of how buying habits happen. But I also know that, with inflationary concerns and kind of what the Fed has doing, that's about a 6 month lag in terms of when we'll see the effects.
So that's the wild card, right?
Yeah, I think next year, about summertime, we'll see the effects of what the Fed did, and right, wrong, and difference, we're going to see the effects of it. And I think that's going to set us up for next year's peak in terms of what happens.
We are going to see it, and we might not like what we see, actually. That's the thing, because the Fed, they're raising interest rates to stop inflation. Part of the data points that they're looking at is unemployment, and they're trying to stoke higher unemployment.
Yeah.
So once you get into the 6 months from now, maybe they're wildly successful, even too successful in stoking unemployment, and then you have issues.
Correct. I think, listen, the COVID pieces in terms of even what the Stone household was doing in terms of our buying habits during COVID, we're not beneficial to anybody, right? And we have to stop spending. And I think that's the biggest thing. And so, the metric that I always look at is, what is that consumer credit card doing? Are we continuously spending, or have we started to pull back on what that credit card looks like and started to do more in terms of actual savings? And I think that's the piece that I continuously look for is, yes, inflation is hitting, but that credit card continues to increase. And I think that's going to be the conversation as we kind of go into next year.
It was the growth in credit card debt was 15-year high.
Yeah.
It was that the headline from last week. I think it tells you.
I think that
answers the question.
I know, right? and that's American consumers, and I think that's what we're notorious for. Is, hey, we're just going to go put it on the card, and we'll deal with this stuff later. And I think eventually we're probably going to have to pay the man. And I think that at the end of the day, something happens next year, and what that is, I think we're all kind of guessing. I think we see the signs and we try to read the stuff, and even you and me have had conversations about, are we truly in a recession or not? Well, if jobs continue to increase, are we really in that recession? I don't know.
I don't know either. Are we going to put ourselves in a recession? Yeah. Because it's kind of the goal. Yes. The unspoken goal, which maybe it is spoken, but it's kind of that hard truth that no one really wants to talk about, is that the interest rate that the Fed is trying to create a recession, and the recession is to tamper down inflation.
Correct.
And that might happen in the second half of next year, which, are we in a recession or not? We're kind of changing patterns all over the place. Will we be in a recession next year?
Yeah, I think if I'm sitting, and obviously we are, but if I'm sitting in a freight brokerage piece and I'm thinking about sales, right? Like this is, I'm licking my chops, because this is prime opportunity for me to step in and do everything I say I'm going to do. I think it's prime opportunity for me to go after CPG type customers, right? Toilet paper, paper towels, they don't go away. We still need the basics. And really that's what transportation is all about, right? Transportation is all about movement of basic goods from one location to another, right? And so from a freight brokerage perspective, do I hope some of that happens? No, because, I like the economy the way it is. But at the same point, do I sit back and go, this is a prime opportunity, because I know that certain fleets may go away. I know that certain customers may need some additional support because their normal transportation provider may not be able to support that. Yeah, that's where, a company like Ryder can step in, support, provide that level of value to that customer, and turn around and kind of wait this thing out as we all are trying to figure out what happens next year.
As we all sit around trying to, and as a freight broker, as a salesperson, you have to be realistic, but optimistic.
Correct.
As well. You can't get down. You got to think about the opportunities and challenges, and how you can create something out of chaos.
Yeah, I think if I'm a sales guy sitting there and I'm thinking through my book of business, maybe it's all flatbed housing materials stuff, right? And as I start to hear recession, or I start to hear inflation, or I hear any of these words,
sales falling, new builds going down.
Correct. I turn around and go, this is my book of business. It's up to me to go diversify, just like I would a portfolio, right? I got to go diversify it, and I got to go find those other customers that continuously ship, because there's constantly things that are moving. It's just a matter of finding it. And truthfully, that's what makes this business so much fun, is that you do almost get to be this kind of, investigator of who is actually shipping today, who is moving product. And I tell people all the time, like, look at your own spending habits. As you kind of take your normal paycheck and you go out in the market, what are you buying today? Well, I'm buying this, this, and this. Great. Those are probably the same things that your buddies down the street are buying, or that, the people you graduated college are buying. So it's a matter of figuring that stuff out and going down that route. But I think for, us that sit kind of in this level of like, let's go evaluate all this data, it's kind of scary to look at, but at the same time, it's super simple. Go after the things that people are buying on a day-to-day basis. Go make the entry into those. Go win the business today, because tomorrow, when things do turn around, they're going to look back at who provided the service for them during this period of time of down, and they're going to turn around and reward those guys that are coming out of it. Like, this isn't, the great thing about this industry is it's not rocket science. It's super simple to understand, hard to execute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simple, not easy.
Yep.
But at the same time, like if you can do this and do it well, and now all of a sudden when those home sales do come back and you have that flatbed crew of folks that you know to go to, well, now you're off to the races. And that's where the real fun and excitement comes, because now you got it coming from both sides.
It is. And this down market's going to be followed by the up market.
Yes.
Where you get
Happens
rewarded.
every time.
You have to play. I know, right? It
Happens
does.
every time.
It happens every time. And this is where you build your book so you can reap the rewards.
Yep.
You know, you do things the right way so you can reap the rewards.
That's exactly it.
David, thank you so much for joining us on Put That Coffee Down today. It's been fun. It's been great around the office. And we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been reading all the work, and I've been shutting down